Ooh. Okay everyone, so day 2, apologies for my voice by the way, been finding a little bit of a cold since last week, so it got a little bit worse last night, but doesn't stop greatness. Good news, the tool has now arrived, which means we can finish the fuel lines, and then obviously based on what we saw yesterday, there is an issue with the electrics, so going to try and tackle the electric issue now and see if we can get this thing to fire. Also just wire up all the electrics as well for the starter, solenoid and everything else, and just see if we can get this guy to turn over. But you know, let's see what we can do. It all depends on what happens with the electrics and, you know, whether there's something significantly wrong inside of the car. But we're going to check the fuses, we're going to check the wires, we're going to rewire the ignition as well, the ignition barrel. I will try and get whatever parts I can today from local stores if we need anything. But if not, then we'll have to revisit it. But let's get stuck into it. Alright everyone, so the AN fitting is now on the end, so definitely this tool is a lifesaver. It's so much easier than doing that before. I used an angle grinder before and it wasn't as effective at cutting it so cleanly that this thing does. So definitely invest in one of these if you're going to do these fittings. What I did find though is if you cut it raw without anything on it, it does still fray a little bit on there. So what I did was I used electrical tape and did a couple of wraps around here, so a couple of wraps of electrical tape, and then cut in the middle of the electrical tape. So maybe about four or five wraps of electrical tape, so quite tight. Do as tight as you can. Not tight that you're sort of compressing the tube on the inside. You don't want to compress the tube, but as you can see, this was cut before, and look at how it frays, right? It's absolutely terrible. All of these sort of little exposed cables here. I mean, I had one underneath the fingernail, all over the hand. They really do poke, and you can't squeeze this to kind of get it into the AN fitting. The fitting itself is like this, and as you can see, you will not be able to get that in there. So with this new tool now with the cable cutter, tighten it about 5 times as tight. Not obviously, just like I said, don't compress the inner tube. Sorry, focus. You don't want to compress the inner tube, but you want to wrap it quite tight and then cut in the middle, and then you should then hopefully have enough you know, space. If you don't, obviously if you put too much electrical tape, then you can't get it on. And then what you do is you can put the AN fitting on top, and obviously when you're turning it counterclockwise, so on top of the tape, I just put it straight on top of the tape because it should seal into this tube anyway, so you shouldn't have a problem with the a little bit of electrical tape on the outside of it. And then literally just counterclockwise, just push it down. You might need to tuck it a little bit underneath, and then you should be good to go from there. And then literally you'll have it like this, and then if it just, sorry, just fix the focus on the inside. You should be able to see inside of there. You want the cable to be snug, so it can't go anymore. And obviously just keep pushing it down, and then it'll stop. And then what you want to do now is for the other end, I'm going to grab some WD-40 or silicone spray. If you have some, just lubricate it a little bit just so you can start threading it, because otherwise what will happen is if it's dry, it won't feed into the tube and it will just pull this straight out. So let me just grab some of that, and then we'll continue this. Okay, so that's the fitting. We're going to use the 45-degree angle, so just give it a little spray. It's a lot of spray, but a little bit enough, just so it sort of lubricates it a little bit there. And then you want to push it in. Now obviously hold the cable in, pull the valve down, and then just start threading it in. You need to be quite forceful. If you have a vise, obviously it's going to be easier, but you want to just try and get it started in there. So it starts threading. You can put a little bit of electrical tape here if you want to, because it will just show you whether it's pulling itself out or not. But this one looks like we're pretty good, to be honest. So what I'm doing is I'm putting force with this hand, squeezing together, and then tightening as I go, and it seems to be doing the job. Okay, so there it's starting to pull out a little bit. It's getting further in, but it is pulling, sorry, focus, It is sort of going further in, but it's pulling the tube out a little bit. So let me just see if I've got anything like I can use as a vise to kind of hold it in place. I actually don't have a workbench vise, one of the things I need to get, but I'll see if I can get this in to make it wide, or slightly just widen the hole on the inside so it feeds a little bit better. You don't want to make it too wide or it'll leak, so don't go crazy, but just a slight amount of width just to get that in, the fitting in, because obviously it is feeding the threads in there as well. So remember, it's going to widen it anyway as you go in. But yeah, let me just see what I got, and then we'll come back and see if we can get it on. Alright, after much drama, we've got it on. So what I found is the trick for this is speed is your trick, right? So what I did was I held it together, so hand on here, fingers on there, hold it down with the spanner, quick, but you gotta put enough lubricant on it, quick, but then if it starts to pull up, repeat, re-lubricate, carry on, and then as you go down, literally speed, keep going until you get down, and then literally it beds in quite nicely. So I think if you do it too slowly, it will push it out, so you kind of have to like drill it in with the spanners obviously down there, and then when you get to the bottom, you won't be able to turn it anymore. So 19 on this side, and I can't remember what the other side was, but literally just put it on together, tighten it down one final time, make sure it's tight. This one will obviously move around, but that too need to be tight, and now it's not going to go anywhere, so that should be good to go. So finally, after ages, I was contemplating life choices whether I wanted to use this valve or not, but we've managed to get it in there now. Just in the essence of time, I didn't want to waste too much time on it, but okay, we're good to go. So now what we're going to do is measure up, put this on, measure up for the filter end, so cut the cable again, and then we are done from a fuel line. Okay, just to show you how it's offered up, so obviously the AN fitting is there around. I find a nice run here, so it'll go along there to the fuel filter, keeping the cable, the fuel line, sorry, up above the engine, as much away from the heat as I can. So now just to show you how to cut it, obviously I've taped it up here, so I know that the end I need to cut here, the amount. You want to keep that straight in there as possible. So what I tend to do is go in the middle of the marking, and then you just want to squeeze that down, and then it'll bite. So I'm just going to move the tripod just so I've got the room to do it, just like that, and away it goes. And then now you've got your end here, so using a tin snip you can just clean up the little frays that you may have on there, and then you're good to go to fit that in. There, and then just give it a quick blow. Just get anything out that may be in there, any small bits, and then you can put it back on. Just check the run. It's something like that. And it should be okay. That should be alright. Okay, so I'm going to get that connected up, and that's the fuel lines all good to go. Okay, so that's the fuel lines all done. As you can see, it goes around along the firewall, and then to the filter, and then down, and then you've got the vapor return there that just goes down to there, all nice and neat. So what I've actually done is I've neatened up the bracket a bit. I found I remember I had the bracket from the mower that should worked really nicely to this because it's rubberized as well, and then there was a little hole just above the blower. So found a screw that fits in that, put the bracket in there. Now it holds it in quite nicely. Everything's all tightened up as well, so we're looking pretty good, to be honest. Yeah, from a fuel perspective, we are all done. So let's move on to something else now. I think next thing I'm going to try and do is probably the pipes, silicone hoses for the radiator. So let's get that done, because we don't know what we're going to see. So ooh, Look at that. Oh, jackpot. Alright, it's taken me a while, but we have hoses in there. So I'm a bit upset that this blue is a different color to this blue, but you know, first world problems, right? Yeah, I mean, all in all, it's okay. Everything, it was a bit of a squeeze to try and get him in. There's a few slight kinks in there, but I'm hoping with the heat expansion, it'll sort of like correct itself a little bit in there as it expands. But we've got all the plumbing to the heater done, return and inlet, and outlet for the heater core. Then this is the return for the pump, and then you've got the outlet of the radiator, and then so on at the bottom here, the inlet where it sucks it in. So I've had to kind of make a fitting for that, and at the bottom as well, so it's sort of just pushed into place just for the sake of testing the engine. We will not run it like that in the real world when we get it driving, but for now, because it was just a different size, the water pump itself, the inlet pipe was slightly wider than the hose that I had. So a bit annoying, but I'll try and see if I can source something that'll, you know, fit that properly, so it's snug and it fits safely, so we don't lose the coolant and so on when we're driving it in the real world. So that's all done now. We've got all the piping done for the coolant. What we need to do, I've got a radiator cap, so that's a quick and easy thing that we'll put onto there. So next thing I'm going to try and do is get that alternator fitted onto here, and then once the alternator's in, we will start work on the dreaded electrics and see if we can get this thing turning over. Okay, so the alternator's got some sort of makeshift brackets that we've made up to kind of hold it in place. It's not perfect, and definitely don't recommend running this like this in the real world. I will get some better brackets for it, but for the time being, we've got decent enough tension on the belts where we can run it and just check that everything works. So again, it's not, like I said, please don't do this in the real world. It's not perfect. We've only got the two brackets here. There's no swing bracket holding it from swinging at the bottom there, but for the time being we've tightened these quite tight now, so I'm happy that they should be okay. But yeah, we're going to try and make up what we can to kind of hold it in place in the future, but time to get onto the electrics. Okay everyone, so we've got the starter motor wired up. We've just offered the wire, obviously it's all loose in there because we've just wired everything to it. We've put the starter solenoid in, it goes back to the battery over there. We've done all the wiring for the ignition and so on to it. We haven't done the ballast resistors just dangling down there because we haven't put the distributor in yet, or the solenoid. But what we're going to do is we're going to just have a look. We've got the multimeter here in hand, we're getting it ready. We're going to just do some tests just to check that everything is actually going. We don't know what's going to happen. Like we said before, the fuel pump didn't even turn on last time when we did it, so we're going to give it a go now that we've got everything connected up. Battery's in, it's powered. I've charged the battery fully now as well, so let's go and see what happens, right? So wish us luck, guys. Let's have a look. Okay, so we're just going to do a quick continuity test throughout just to check that everything is actually getting power to where it needs to go. Good. Okay, so that's all good along the way. Everything seems to be getting power to where it needs to go. So let us crank the key and we're going to see what happens, guys. So let's do it. So we've turned everything on, we've turned the key and everything else. As you can hear, the fuel pump actually turned on this time, which is really good news. So fuel pump turned on. The starter solenoid clicked, but the starter motor isn't turning. So we're going to try and have a look and see if we can figure out what's going on that front. But good progress, we're almost there. It sounds good, it's better than we had yesterday. So let us figure out that one and we'll be back to you guys. Okay everyone, so we're still struggling to get this thing to turn over via the starter motor. So we're actually going to check the starter motor. So what we've got is we've got a jumper cables. So one on the starter motor, one on the engine block. That should provide the positive and negative for the grounding, and then we're going to connect it up to the battery and just see if it will even just turn over or at least crank that starter motor, because we don't know if the starter motor is actually seized or if it works at all. Otherwise, it's game over for now. Starting this thing, we're going to have to try and get another starter motor. So let's give it a go, see what happens. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so don't touch it. Dog is there trying to assist us, obviously, expertise. So it looks like the starter motor is jammed. That is a sure sign that it's not even firing at all. So yeah, not a good news, not the news we were hoping for, but you know, let's get the rest of it done. We can at least still get the distributor in and try and get it the timing right, based on the timing top dead center, but we're going to be able to do nothing until we can get it running. So yeah, a bit annoyed by that, but yeah, part of the joys of buying a car unknown when you're not able to see the engine running, right? All right, everyone, we're getting ready to close up for the day. So we got a lot done today, to be honest. A heck of a lot of things done. Just trial fitting. It's just a shame about the alternator, sorry, the starter motor not working, which is just a bit annoying. Also the alternator not fitting properly as well, which is also annoying. But we've got the distributor in now, so that was a little bit of a fiddle to try and get to put this in, because obviously you have to keep rotating the engine, put your hand on it to kind of get it to line up with the oil pump dowel or the rod for the oil pump that sits in there. But then obviously you got to get that turn, keep turning until it pops back into place, and then you got to kind of mark it up. So what we did was we marked number 1 on there, where 1 is for the top dead center, where we want it in that position. And then we have to keep, you know, obviously with the engine itself, you got to find your top dead center with your piston. So we did that by rotating the engine, using this little piece of bamboo here to just find out when the piston gets to the top on 1, but obviously rotating it until it's on its compression stroke, which means that air is being pushed out of the cylinder first, and then we put the dowel in just to kind of find out where it's at its top point in there. The reason we did that was because we can't see the top dead center on R1, just because this is the harmonic balance is reversed. So actually the timing mark, the timing marker and the top dead center is actually on this side, which is obstructed by the inlet for the water pump, which is annoying, and it's going to make timing for us an eventful exercise. But what we're going to do is we've managed to get it in there. We've adjusted it, so when you, if I open this up here, so what you have to do is get the distributor here to line up with the 1 on that side, right? And that means that you have to take it, pull the distributor up, turn the head. Now remember, it's on a gear, so it will rotate as you push it down. So you got to get it the right amount of turns, so it when you push it all the way in, it rotates and comes down and lines up with your 1 marker on there. And then obviously you got to follow the engine for your engine, but obviously most 302s I believe are the same, and that is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. You can then start with putting your leads. So we've rewired all the leads in the right order, because it was weird, I don't think they were in the right order before, but essentially we've got the 1 and then worked our way around just following the diagram. I'll put it up on the screen here for you guys, the diagram that I used, to kind of show you where everything goes. And then yeah, so we're now left with a coil, so the only thing left to wire up is the coil. But the news is now with the starter motor to try and find the right one that I need to use. It might, sorry, just my end of the day now, my body's tired, my voice is going from the cold. So when we replace the starter motor, some of the new ones come with a solenoid, which means this guy becomes redundant, which is annoying, but it's fine. I mean, look, we haven't committed any of the wiring. We just literally put that into place in existing holes that were already there. So we didn't drill anything, and the wiring is just in there. We haven't cut all the cables and stuff. We just left it as it is. So I'm going to try and call it a day now. We're going to try and source some of the parts that we need. Maybe a little bit longer HT lead, because that doesn't quite reach to the body to line up. So I got to think about how to put that in. Maybe I'll make a bracket or something for it, perhaps. Whatever works, we'll try and figure something out. But yeah, that's where we are today. We're going to leave it there, and yeah, tomorrow's another day. Let's see what we can do. So 10:30 at night here, and we have taken the entire starter motor apart. So I'm determined to try and save this thing if I can. So taking it apart, trying to give it a good clean, doing some testing on it, and yeah, we'll see. So I mean, Sunday tomorrow, most places are closed, so we won't be able to get a new starter motor for it. But maybe we can breathe some new life into this old thing after all. But yeah, wish us luck. Alright everyone, day 3. So last night we tried to rebuild the starter motor, clean it up on the inside, obviously rebuild without any parts, that is, just cleaning it up, seeing where we can just get everything to realign. It didn't look terrible on the inside, it obviously is showing 50 years of age, but what we're going to do now is I'm going to try and jump it and see what happens. It's either not going to work still, or it's going to work, but if it does work, happy days, we can actually try and get this thing started. So, alright, let's go.
There's a short on it.
Yeah. Okay, so as you can see, not looking very good there. Okay, looks like the starter motor is done. So everything is shut today on a Sunday. There's nothing more we can get for this. So we're gonna try and do a few other bits and pieces, but it looks like starter motor and starting this thing is not going to happen this weekend. Frustrating. But look, maybe tomorrow we'll try and see if we can get it going. But yeah, for now, let me just walk you over to the engine because I've had another train of thought on this. So I'm going to walk you guys over there and then I will explain. Okay, so as I mentioned yesterday, the water pump sort of inlet is blocking the timing markers and everything that's on the engine. Now, obviously, the previous owners put this water pump in, and I think it's because the radiator that they bought had the inlet outlet this way. So instead of, I think the normal 302s have both on the same side, but this side doesn't. So I think they they bought the water pump to try and make that fit, but that then blocks us from doing the timing markers at all on that car. So the actual timing marker thing is there, and they both are Summit Racing parts, so it was done and it is the correct sort of markings and so on with the harmonic balancer. Well, they did have this in the boot. Now this is the original one, it's the same blue as the engine block, so this was the original water pump. Now we've given it a little bit of a test. It seems to move quite freely. The bearings don't seem to have any play that we can see on there, so we're hoping, and even lengthwise, it is exactly the same length. So that pulley should actually just go onto this one, and it should go in. So what we're going to do is I'm going to clean this up. We're going to change that water pump to the original one, because then that just gives us better access to the timing. Because with that being in the way, we can put a camera down in front of the radiator and so on, but we're never going to accurately get the timing right for this car without doing that. So I'm not going to waste time with it. I'm not going to try and fiddle around and over-engineer something that we don't need to do. Let's get that water pump in there, and yeah, we'll go from there, because we can't do much now without a starter motor anyway. So a few little things that we're going to do today. Maybe put the kickdown cable in, tidy up some of the electrics on there. And one of the things that we found, let me walk you back into the garage, is this. Look at the state of this. Now this is the connector for the oil filter. That is absolutely ruined. So it looks like it's got an inner smaller diameter screw-on valve there, and they've put this extender on it for perhaps a bigger oil filter or a different oil filter. So I'm going to see if it's possible to get this off, because we do have a oil filter that will fit that, the one we had. It will fit this, so we just need to get the outer one off there. But obviously I don't want to damage it anymore, otherwise I'll just have to buy a new one of these. But let's see what we can do. I'd like to get that sort of done, at least get the oil filter on, so everything is good. Yeah, let's see what we can do. Hey everyone, so just a quick update. We've tried everything we could to get the oil filter bracket or expander to come off. Nothing's working, it's just chewing up all the threads as well. So we're going to call it there. With this and the starter motor issue, it doesn't seem likely that we're going to get this thing to run unless the auto parts store sells one of these, which I kind of highly doubt. But yeah, we're gonna give it a go, see what we can do. But for now, we're probably gonna just tackle the water pump, and there's nothing more we can do now until we can source the parts. So watch the space. I am determined we will get this thing running, but it may not be till next week. So please, continue to like and subscribe, watch this videos, because we are going to do it. Look at that, good as new. A little bit rusty still, but that's okay. We'll give it another coat of paint anyway, but look at the inside, so much better. Alright, so water pump is in, the old one, the clean one now. And everything looks nice. We can actually see our timing marks now, which is right there. So that's much better than what we had before, but now at least it's really good, we can see it. So we still got the outlet for the radiator here. We can actually get the pipe to run around. It'll just be a bit of an odd run to the other side, but we'll see what we can do when we get to that. The problem we have now is that the pulleys don't align, right? We've put it in. There is a spacer behind the water pump as well that sort of brings it forward, but it doesn't align no matter which way we do it. So it's weird. I mean, obviously we didn't have the gaskets. I made the gasket with the K2 sealant on there, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to order some gaskets. I think with the gaskets actually on there, the back plate's already on there, but with the gaskets in, it probably might push that out slightly, the couple of mil that we need for it to align correctly. So I'm going to get those ordered, but it looks much better now. Everything's accessible, it looks quite clean, and everything's blue, so it looks really nice.